Want to beat your mates at fantasy football? I've got a little secret for you.
Fantasy Football Hub provides the artificial intelligence, recommended transfers, expert team reveals and more, all designed to help you win your mini-league.
Big beats.
If you don't win your mini-league, we'll even refund your membership. Sign up today for 50% off. Terms apply. Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, chaps. Welcome to the Green Arrow FPL podcast from Fantasy Football Hub with Gameweek 1 in the books as we look ahead to Gameweek 2. My name is Fergie, and today, as you can see, we have a very special guest. But firstly, Rich, how are you? And how did your Gameweek 1 fare?
Hi, Fergie. Hi, everyone. Yeah, pretty good, I think, overall. One or two things to touch on, but overall, really happy with the score, really happy with the start and the picks that I made. So I think 83, good start, solid start. Not worried about the ranking at this stage, but really not too much to worry about in terms of the actual squads we put together. The template did very well, didn't it? I mean, there was a number of options that we talked about for weeks and weeks, and pretty much all of them delivered. One or two, even the ones that didn't deliver, like Eze and people like that, played very well and had really high XGs and stuff. So I think it was a testament to all our due diligence and analysis in terms of preparing for game week 1 that we've come out of the traps pretty strong. So yeah, overall I'm happy. One major gripe, along with a lot of other people. I don't really want to get the violin out early.
You can get it out early, mate. I've got
getting out early.
I've got the violin here, and I'll play the music as well.
Okay, all right. Well, I decided not to go. Obviously, it was Fest last week in the UK and up in London, and I was thinking about going, and I decided not to go to Fest because I felt that the last hour leading up to it, the deadline, was more important for me and hub members, etc., to get my team in tip-top shape, make sure that if there were any late team leaks, that I would be all over them and catch them. And so there am I. I'm watching my chosen deadline stream. I think I chose to watch Focal last week rather than Andy or Harry or one of the other guys. And I'm watching away, and I'm pretty happy with the team. We get the City team news that comes out about 40 minutes before the deadline or half an hour before the deadline. I think, okay, well, fair enough. I won't go for any sit of players. I'm happy with that. And I just sort of went into the last 20 minutes thinking I'm not going to make any changes to my team. And I basically just wasn't looking in the right place. And I completely missed the Gabriel news coming out, and initially joined the legions of people who were, thinking how unfair it was, how content creators were getting an edge and not sharing it with the rest of the community. And I was furious, and I'd lost out by, however many points I was going to lose out by. And yeah, and then obviously the game's played out. At one point we were looking at a 12-point variance, weren't we, between Gabriel and Saliba, and then they finally conceded. And it took me a couple of days to calm down, but I did reflect, Fergie. I reflected, and along with I think Josh in America said this week, he said, I just felt that actually the main reason that I'm pissed off is that basically I didn't get the information, and I missed it despite my own efforts, and that's really, I wanted the information so that I could react to it, and unfortunately, we can get into what we think of it all, but that's kind of what the game has become, hasn't it? You've now got to be on it for an hour, looking at all social media channels, all information channels, all sources, in order to be able to catch some vital piece of information that's coming out. And it's not even for the immediate game. This was for a game the following day. So look, I mean, that's a 2-minute rant, so sorry.
That's
but,
okay,
yeah,
mate.
It did affect me,
It's
man.
It's all good. What do you just my take on the leaks are, it's just not going to stop it. It's just what I'm very just kind of blasé about it. I think it's just there's lots of other things we've always had in terms of leaks, and there's and there's other intel which we get through certain mediums, which it's just got to a point now where you've got a couple of people who know it, and they know that they can put out an optimum time like 30 minutes, 15 minutes, before the deadline, and
3 minutes,
and 3 minutes sometimes, and it's it's what it is. I want to introduce Bakar. Amazing to have you with us, Bakar. If you didn't catch Bakar's brand new series on this channel, the 10-minute podcast, please do. You can be doing it every single week, ratting through everything for those who really want really high quality short form content. But great to have you with us, Bakar, big man. How are you, and how was your game week one? Bakar is frozen.
He's frozen at the critical
moment on his debut. That's a violin moment right there. Bakar's gonna have to come back. He's frozen. I'll just take a look through Bakar's team. I'll read out for everyone. He scored 76 points. I'm sure he'll be back any second. He had Pickford in goal, Chilwell, Saliba, and Estupiñán, and Mbomo, Saka, Rashford, Bruno, and Martinelli, Haaland, and Jackson. Reece James on the bench. You'd be very, very disappointed, I'm sure, when he comes back. Bakar, if you haven't seen, you're probably going to have to drop off and come back on because you've frozen. But yeah, 76 points. Very template team. Very, very good team. Strong team. Very well set up as well, I think. Or he would have been for game week 2, especially game week 3 with the Chelsea boys. Bakar's coming back now, any second. He's back. Yeah. Bakar, welcome back. Great to have you back with us. We were just running through your team. We were just saying, you set yourself up really nicely for, on Chelsea, Chilwell, Jackson, and James. But disappointing news this afternoon. Is that right?
Thanks for having me, guys. First ever appearance on the Green Arrow podcast, so I'm chuffed to be here. It was an all right week. I got 76 points. I set myself up with a long-term team. I picked 3 Chelsea, going slightly anti-template in that sense, expecting James to be a bit of a differential from game week 3 onwards, and all my hopes have been shattered. I mean, after 1 week. I mean, it was probably foolish of me to pick him in the first place, but it is what it is. And I mean, I don't overly feel gutted about it, because I think everyone will be looking to move to Gusto in game week 3 because of Chelsea's really good run of fixtures. Yeah. So I don't necessarily feel as if I'm a transfer behind the curve, because I feel as if almost everyone will be making that kind of transfer next week.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, you're really well set up to have Chilwell in already, to have Jackson in already. As you say, I think next week, potentially not this week as such, but next week, game week 3, if Jackson plays well against West Ham, well, even if he doesn't, if he shows the kind of spark that he showed, you are a transfer ahead. So I think you're absolutely fine at Bakar. And even though your rank is like, you only scored, what was it, 7 points less than Rich, so it's nothing. So.
Yeah, I mean, 76 points is all right. I mean, at this point in the season, like Rich said earlier, it's not really about rank. It's about staying with the rest of the pack. Exactly. And once you have more information, more data available, then you can make more informed decisions about differentials later on in the season, especially with double game weeks and all coming into play. So at this stage of the season, I'm happy to sort of meander along with the rest of the pack, and then I'll pick and choose my moments later.
Absolutely. The best way to play FPL. I scored a point more, Bakar, 77 points. Havertz was the one I went for. I went for him in the end. I thought he's quite unlucky. I watched the game, and I think during the 70 odd minutes that he played in midfield, he probably didn't do an awful lot. But then I thought that Arsenal as a whole didn't do an awful lot, and Forest defended quite well. He went up front for the final 20 minutes, and it got quite end to end. And I was quite excited because he got on the end of a few. He just couldn't quite get the points, the goal or the assist, but I still think it was, a reasonable punt. He played, I think he played 90 minutes, and I would have taken that at the start, as a kind of Arsenal forward against Forest. So not too much regret. I think the main thing for me was to have Chilwell, have Estupiñán in. Those guys look really good. Pedro in place at his price point as well. I was really happy with that, and everyone else kind of have chipped in. So yeah, reasonably happy. Just quickly before we move on, do you want your FPL team rated for free? And do you want recommendations for improvements driven by artificial intelligence? If you do, click the top link in the description below and go to Fantasy Football Hub to get your team rated. We'll be showing our current drafts, ratings, and recommended transfers for Game Week 2 later in the show. If you do join for the full package as a paying member, we're so confident in our tools and AI that we are offering a staggering Win Your FPL Mini League or Your Money Back offer. And with 50% off in pre-season and going into Game Week 1 and 2, I think there's never been a better time to join the hub. Welcome everyone in the chat. Masses and masses of people here. Frederick was first in. He bit my time with stones. Unlucky there. Picture of the scene is in. Christopher, Josh Hall, Ashley Howell, Oberis in Washington. Mahomey is in. I'm 1974. Colin Johnson says, lovely evening outside, cutting my grass while ear podding to the pod. Well in, Colin. Craig is in. B to the T says, bye Salah. I'm sure we'll be touching on Mo Salah in a bit. Darren Parker scored 83. Darnish is in. Music Pogo is in. As is FPL Freddy, and so many more. So great to have you all with us. We do have some violin moments of the week, which are going to run through. Don't forget, if you want to feature on violin moments, make sure you send your entry into either Green Arrow or myself on Twitter. But let's kick off with a few violin moments of the week. First one is off FPL Fitz. FPL Face-Off Fitz. He's one of those idiots who get superstitious about captaining the early game. So as a Rashford captainer, weekend was ruined at 8:05 on Friday, and my season ruined by 10 o'clock on Monday. Long way to go, of course. Also went Odegaard over Martinelli. Not the best start there, Fitz, but you can come back. Don't worry about that. FPL Fozzie, the last-minute transfer of Stones to Diaz. He got the insight on Stones. He got the inside scoop, but went to Diaz, who obviously also didn't play. A couple of other good ones here. Nelly Ellis had Rodri in a draft for over a week, feeling really good. Top predicted points at 5.5 million on Fantasy Football Hub, Rodri was. On holiday in Devon, needed an excuse to pull over. We need milk. Pulled over into the service station and saw that Foden was start with 3 minutes to go, and he switched from Rodri to Foden, and he's given a bit of a rip emoji. That is tough going. All the milk, innit? If that service station hadn't have been there with 5 minutes to go, you would have been off to an absolute flyer. Unlucky there, Nelly. Josh Telling, 50-50 call for my 5 million defender spot. Knew I wanted United cover to clean sheet Game Week 1. Couldn't afford Shaw, so went Varane. A couple of days before the deadline, switched to Martinez. And what's worse, I benched Chilwell to play Martinez. Good work, Josh. Good work, Josh. And finally, we've got FPL Smoggy. Took out Mitoma. Took out Mitoma and Saka. For KDB and Bernardo when the City team news broke. 11-point swing and a transfer already booked in. Congratulations, everyone. You are all honorary members of the Violin Club. Welcome. Don't forget to send in your submissions every week for a chance to become a member of this very exclusive club. Okay, chaps, let's move on to Game Week 2. And firstly, I've just got a few images. We called it problem picks, and these are the players who could, reasonably popular Game Week 1 players who could become problems going into Game Week 2 and onwards. On this particular side, we've got Reece James, John Stones, who we believe both have hamstring injuries. Reece James looks like it could be quite a bad one, several months out potentially. We've also got Gabriel, who is an interesting one. I've just put in Bruno and Rashford. Not sure they're kind of problem picks potentially, but Man United, as we saw in pre-season, didn't look great, and there could be a temptation. Rich, I saw you put a tweet out earlier this week. You were maybe tempted to go straight from Rashford and Bruno to, was it Salah and Maddison for a hit? So, firstly, Bakar, if I can ask you first, actually, mainly because you've got Reece James. But yeah, your kind of thoughts on these sorts of players and what to do with them.
I think it's a bit unfair to label some of these players as problem picks unless they're injured, like with Stones and like with James. Of course, now that they have hamstring injuries, they're likely to be out for a while, and sooner rather than later, you have to sell them. Both of them, actually. As far as Gabriel is concerned, I don't necessarily think he's a problem pick yet. I mean, Rich will obviously shed more light on him later. But if I had him, I think I'd keep him this week because, I think the Crystal Palace away is a tough fixture as compared to Forest at home, where I would expect Arteta would set up more conservatively as opposed to against, let's say, a Forest or a Fulham at home, which could happen in Game Week 3. And secondly, because I don't see why anyone would want to sort of shift Gabriel to a low upside pick like Saliba or the likes so early on in the season. I think it makes more sense if, for example, we'll come to Chilwell later. If someone doesn't have Chilwell, then of course selling Gabriel becomes more of a priority. As far as Bruno and Rashford are concerned, I think both of them are perfectly fine. I know United were abysmal in Game Week 1, but one game week isn't enough of a sample size for us to sort of jump the gun and just completely write off Bruno and Rashford as assets, because over a long sample size, they have proven themselves to be very good value time and again over a very, very large sample size. And with the fixtures to come, I expect even the Game Week 2 fixture this week against Spurs, I think that's fine as well, because Spurs under Postecoglou are very attacking. And I think United could have some joy on the break. And then they're up against Forest, who have conceded the highest amount of goals away from home last season. So I think both of them are perfectly fine to keep, and there's no need to panic right now.
Very, very calming advice there, Bakar. Rich, is there, well, you know, your advice needs you nodding along there, so assuming you kind of largely agree. Timber is also out. He's going to be out for months ACL. Have you spotted any other players at all? You know, I think because it was quite a good week for the template, and that, you know, the sort of template 20, 25 sort of players, it's quite hard to think of many outside of these. But what are your thoughts on these players and kind of anyone else who you be thinking of moving on?
I do agree with most of what Bakar said. I think United, you know, was a one poor performance. You know, they still won the game. You know, they Wolves played very well. You know, you have to say they exceeded expectations. I thought Hwang was fantastic when he came on. You know, he tore it up, and so that, you know, you can't always blame United, but they just didn't get going. And I think the advice here is really just give them another week and see how they go against Tottenham, because they are, you know, two of the best fantasy assets, you know, for years, and it would be foolish to just knee-jerk them out. I think because I could sort of mathematically get to Salah in for one hit, I'd put that out there at the beginning of the week, sort of like Bruno and Rashford to Salah and Maddison plus 2.5, which I've got. Sounded quite attractive, you know, when we were trudging through that first half at Old Trafford, but I'm very much doubt I'll do that. I'll give them the Tottenham game and then reassess afterwards. I actually thought I saw Bakar had got both the Chelsea defenders in last week and Nicholas Jackson. I thought at the time it was a very bold move, just given Chilwell and James's injury records. You know, whenever I've owned them both as a pair, one of them has got injured immediately, the other one has got injured the following week. You know, I just don't think they can stay fit as a pair of footballers for longer than a couple of games, even though on paper it looks a fantastic combination to attack a run of fixtures. They just won't get through the fixtures. I mean, it wouldn't be surprised if Chilwell gets injured before Game Week 3. I mean, honestly, they're both made of glass, and they keep on, you know, their bodies keep breaking down on them. And so yeah, I mean, I really like Reece James, but I wasn't sure I was going to bring him in next week, just because I was a bit sort of afraid to own the two in common. Were you worried about their fitness, or did you just say, oh, you can't legislate for it, Bakar, and you just thought, I'll get them while they're fit?
It was the fact that they weren't in Europe. So I thought one game a week. I mean, how difficult would it be? It turns out I was wrong. I mean, it took like 74 minutes for him to pick up the injury, 75 minutes, and he was done. So yeah, I got that one wrong. I mean, I was chasing the upside, and yeah, I've got to put my hand up and accept my mistake.
No, I think it was a mistake.
You've just been unlucky, that's all.
Yeah, you've just been unlucky as quicker than we all thought you'd be unlucky. I mean, you were looking great, weren't you, before we got that news today? It was looking like you were 2 moves ahead of the pack. So it was an aggressive way to start the season, and was looking really good. So, I mean, yeah, Gabriel's still a headache for me. Obviously, I don't have I would say he's 70% likely to start, but I'm completely guessing, you know, based on that. I don't think Arteta will go out with that 3-man defensive structure with a Tomiyasu in it or another player there. I think he probably will revert to more traditional back four with Gabriel there. So I'm going to give Gabriel another game, but he's my biggest worry this week. And I think you're probably right to have him at the front of that graphic, Fergie, because he's still owned by 30% of teams.
Yeah.
But I would say, yeah, if you've got the money for Chilwell, that's a logical transfer to make this week with a 0.5 in the bank. But otherwise, I would say, probably a roll is more sensible and give Gabriel the game.
Yeah, can't.
And Timber got injured as well, so that sort of opens up another slot for him. And I completely agree with the assessment. I think for most FPL managers who sort of went with a template team this week, if you don't have Chilwell, I think he has to be a priority transfer in my opinion. If you can afford to get to him in one move, then great. If you can't, then just save a transfer and make sure you have 2 free transfers to bring him in ahead of those very favorable fixtures in game week 3.
Talking of Chilwell in, let's have a look at some players who turned our heads potentially this week. Some of them low owned and some not. Chilwell obviously number one. I mean, his positioning was crazy. I mean, the goal that was disallowed for offside, it wasn't that he was wide on the wing cut inside. He was basically in the number 9 role when he scored that. He had a shot on target wide on the left as well. He just looked incredibly dangerous. He's got to be high, high on everyone's lists. I thought Jackson looked really, really sharp, had a really high XG. Unfortunate not to score. I can see him doing really, really well. Maddison was another one. I think I'm targeting bringing Maddison in this week. Personally, I just think I saw a few comments on Twitter, sort of built for FPL. He got the 2 assists. Okay, one was a bit fortunate, but his first ball in was superb. I can see him doing some real damage over the next few weeks, and I want to get him in early because I think looking ahead to game weeks 3, 4, and 5, I think there are other teams and other players I'm going to want to kind of get in. If you look at teams like potentially Newcastle, I think from game week 5, obviously Chelsea game week 3, Man City for game week 3, 4, and 5, Liverpool, a bit later as well. Not that I like to book in transfers, but I just think if I don't get Maddison this week, their run is so good. I even think the fixture against Man United is an excellent fixture for Maddison. I don't think I'll be getting him in otherwise.
You didn't go Richarlison in the end. You went
I went Havertz. I was kind of at the end I was really 50-50, and I was pretty sure that Havertz would start. I assumed Richarlison was, but I wasn't that sure. So, but also the fact that I thought Maddison was also an excellent pick was part of the reason why I didn't go Richarlison. Salah's another one. We'll talk about Salah now in depth, and Moussa Diaby. Even though Villa lost 5-1, he looked. Great finish. Looked incredibly sharp as well. So they were just 5. Rich picked out. Rich, can I ask you first about Salah and your thoughts?
Yeah. Okay. If you've gone for a Salah strategy, I would just say 100% don't worry about Haaland captain Salah this week, because this is the week you can ram home that advantage on the field. It's definitely a better fixture, and if I had Salah, I would 100% be captaining him. Whether or not you buy Salah in because of that is a completely different question. I could do it. As I say, I could sell the United pair, get Maddison and Salah in as a combination, and that would really strengthen that. It sounds a really attractive move for a -4, but I don't think I'll do it. It will leave me with no money in the bank going into next week without the ability to get in additional Chelsea players, and so I think I'll just give my team another week. So I probably won't be buying Salah, but I think if you've got him, you should be looking forward to the game week, because I think you're going to get a green arrow.
Really?
That would be my yeah, I think so. I think I'm not expecting one for the non-Salah camp. What do you think, Bakar, on Salah?
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to watching the game. Actually, I think I'll skip the game. There's so many people who I know have Salah captain. Yeah. In my opinion, it's just that stage where, let's say, if you went without Salah in game week 1 and you were happy without him, then you've got to be happy without him in game week 2, because you knew at that point the risk you were taking, and the risk was basically for this week, because realistically we won't be captaining him in any of the succeeding weeks. This is the week where the big risk lies, and obviously the impact of that could be magnified if Salah hauls against Bournemouth, because he won't be owned by as many managers at this time of recording. He's less than 30% owned in the entire game. So having Salah as a captain at home to Bournemouth is a big opportunity to get ahead of the curve. And even, let's say, even if it goes wrong for Salah owners, even in hindsight, I wouldn't be regretting the move one bit, because it makes too much sense on paper, because it is a big opportunity so early in the season to get ahead of the curve.
I don't think I'm quite as convinced as you guys. I think that Bournemouth looked very good last week. They had a lot of possession. I think they had like kind of late 60% last week. I think they've improved. You know, I expect Liverpool to kind of win, but I still haven't seen enough of, I personally, enough of Salah to show that, you know, he can be as blistering as the form as he has last 2 seasons. Watching banging 4 returns now on the weekend, but I still think, all being equal, Haaland at home to Newcastle, I would really expect Man City to beat Newcastle comfortably as well. So I personally don't think it's as attractive as lots do. If Haaland was away, you know, away at Newcastle, but at the Etihad, he's just dynamite. And
don't you just think, though, in the 2 games so far, that City have just looked a bit sleepy, a bit lackluster, like they haven't really hit full flow yet? I know they won the Super Cup, but they won it on penalties, and they didn't impress me. They didn't blow Seville away. I really just don't think they've hit full throttle yet, and so therefore I actually think Newcastle might nick that on the weekend. They're a lot better side than they were when they drew 3-3 there last season. So that doesn't mean I won't captain Haaland, but I'm not writing Newcastle off. I don't see a thrashing in either game, to be honest.
Same.
I mean, you can expect Haaland to do well at home in general, because, I mean, when you look at last season, he was averaging close to 10 points. I mean, those numbers are borderline ridiculous. I mean, you look at, he was averaging close to 1 XGI a game. I know City haven't looked great yet, but it's very difficult to write Haaland off given his pedigree. And Fergie, regarding your point on Salah, the main thing is with Salah Haaland, that we shouldn't just look at this game week in isolation, right? So whether or not the Salah owners or non-owners have won or lost will be decided not after this week, but after 6 weeks, because obviously I mean, if I was to guess, obviously I'd expect the Salah owners to win this week, but let's say over a span of 6 weeks, you would expect the rest of the squad to compensate for his absence, because you've spent the money elsewhere, right? So you will make those points up elsewhere. So it's sort of, it's a tough decision which you should look at over the long run.
Yeah, I agree with that, though it'll be hard to do that on the weekend. but I do agree, because obviously Salah owners have had to make compromises elsewhere, right? You know, and if they've made, you know, smart sort of compromises in terms of, you know, having Haaland and you know, and Pedro only at front as an example, you know, and if they were fortunate, you know, if they went with, if they covered Saka and only had one out of Rashford or Bruno and things, and they'll be absolutely fine, won't they? But then they also have to, I think they're away to Newcastle in game week 3 and then home to Villa in game week 4. Those 2 games in particular, you know, he could do all right, but are they going to want to miss out on the other players, like, you know, say the Chilwells, the Jacksons, potentially Spurs players, and Man City midfielders and things? So, you know, you are right, Bakar. I'm a firm believer in that, you know, your one game week won't define your season, will it? And let's look back in a few weeks. Rich, who else sort of turned your head, and who are you excited about for the coming weeks?
I mean, I think we could have had 4 slides, in terms of each position. There were several, you know, goalkeeper, you know, opportunities that came out. We won't spend too long on these, but obviously Sanchez looks like he's you know, come straight into the Chelsea side, with Kepa looking like he's on the way out. Areola started for West Ham, you know, and Leno put up a cracking performance for Fulham. So you've got you know, some 4.5 and 4.0 goalkeeper options there to consider, particularly if you happen to be wild carding this week or next, or you want to make a goalkeeper transfer and triple up on Chelsea in that way. You know, there's some good opportunities in the goalkeeper options beyond the Pickfords and Arnas and Turners that we started the season with. I think in the defence there's a couple of really good options. As Rico Henry looked really good for Brentford as a 4.5 defender. And probably on performance, Kabore looked really good in the 4.0 slot for Luton, despite them losing. And I didn't really watch. I mean, people are raving about Gusto now as a James replacement, I think, for Chelsea at 4.0. So these are just other names that are coming through at the various price points. In the mids, Tonali and Barnes, I don't know if they're sharing a position, but they were both superb against Villa. And if you have Eze, I'd hold on to him just because his XG was, you're the XG man back up. He put up some splendid numbers, and was very unlucky not to return against Sheffield United. Then up front, we'll talk about Jackson again in a minute, I'm sure. But Wissa, Isak, and Nketiah are all names that that returned and who could do really well over the coming weeks. So that's the thing, is there are so many shiny toys in the shop that could turn our heads at the moment that it's really just worth waiting for another week of information and going in with double that information before you make your decisions, and 2 transfers, just in my view. So
a couple of points on the few players that you mentioned. I mean, Sanchez is interesting, but we've spoken about Chilwell and the right back now that James is injured, and Jackson looking so good. So I mean, that's the risk if you run, if you pick someone like a Sanchez at this point in time, that you probably can't get to the optimal triple up for Chelsea. And as far as Henry is concerned, we saw this time and again last season for Brentford as well, that they tend to play with a wing-back system, 3-5-2, in the difficult games against the bigger sides, while against the lesser opposition, he tends to pick 3-4-3, where it's actually 4-3-3, where Henry's playing as a traditional left back as opposed to a left wing back. So that's why he looked better at the weekend. But I think against Fulham and the easier fixtures that Brentford have coming up, I think Henry will play in a slightly deeper position as compared to the role he played against Spurs.
Superb, Bakar. Is there anyone else you've got your eye on at all? Who kind of impressed you on the weekend?
Not necessarily. I think we've covered most of the picks who looked good. There's Maddison. I mean, if you want to talk about him in detail, Maddison, Richarlison. I still personally am not convinced whether Maddison will be a better pick than Richarlison.
Wow, okay.
I think Richarlison in that number 9 position could end up being the better pick now that Kane is left. Again, this is why saving a transfer this week makes so much sense, because you get more information: who is on penalties, who is posting the better numbers. Another week of data could go a long way into helping us make these decisions, because Spurs again have a very good run of fixtures from game week 3. So this is something I'm actually keeping a very keen eye on this weekend.
Yeah, this is what I'm thinking. See, is for game week 3. There's a few teams, whose fixtures turn, and it's you can save this week, but then if you save this week, I know you've got the 2 going into 3. Would you be, if Maddison or Richarlison kind of really impressed, as well as Jackson, as well as another player as well, are you going to be willing to kind of go all in on game week 3, or is just getting a player, someone like Maddison and Jackson for me? I'm convinced on Maddison personally from what I've seen of him, not only in game week 1 but in pre-season as well. Is it worth getting them early to try and get ahead of it, or am I just maybe looking at a bit too much because I've got Havertz who I probably want to get rid of, whereas you guys have probably got someone like Mbomo or someone else who has got really good fixtures? Do you think I'm being a bit too knee-jerk by wanting these players in, or do you think that that waiting is the right play? Rich, what do you think?
Well, I think the point's been made this week by some that because our teams or the template teams will revert to almost like a game week 1 set of fixtures in game week 3, because all the teams are at home again and have a favourable fixture. The reason we set up this way is that most of the teams we pick from have 2 favourable fixtures in 3. You'll probably find it's difficult to make a transfer in game week 3 again, with a player who doesn't have a decent fixture. So let's say Spurs win and United don't look very good again. Bruno and Rashford have got Nottingham Forest at home in game week 3. Do you really want to sell them when they've got that fixture? You've got to think, I'm bringing Maddison in because, I've now got to use one of my transfers. But actually, you're potentially forgoing a haul there because the fixture's good. So almost like you're looking for that extra information this week so that you can at least send a couple of the guys to the departure lounge, because you literally want to say, find your outs as much as you want to find your ins. And hopefully some of the performances will help you to get to that decision. But yeah, I think taking 2 is still wise into game week 3. But if you want to carry that transfer and take it on into game week 4, that's a very viable play. I may just get one Chelsea asset in. I mean, I've got my eye on Jackson. I'm jealous Bakkar's got him in, but I'll probably bring Jackson in game week 3. And that's my planned transfer if there is such a thing. But yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with making a move, Fergie. If you like to get ahead of the curve, don't you?
Yeah, but I'm always too bloody early. That's the problem.
Yeah. It's actually a very, very good debate to have, because, I mean, just to be more specific, in game week 3, Arsenal have Fulham. A lot of us have Arsenal players. Brighton have West Ham at home. Again, a very favorable fixture. A lot of us have 2 or 3 Brighton. A lot of us have Brentford players. They're playing Crystal Palace at home. United have Forest, as Fergie just mentioned, as Rich just mentioned. So, I mean, where are you going to even use those transfers? I mean, yes, Spurs and Chelsea have a very good run of fixtures from game week 3, but you don't really want a situation where you're just making luxury transfers for the sake of making them. So it's actually a very fine balance, sort of trying to justify whether it's worth removing some of our picks from our initial game week 1 squads. For me, I think it's going to be different because of the James injury. But even with the James injury, I mean, I have Saliba, Stupinan, and Chilwell, and all 3 of them have very good fixtures at home in game week 3. So I don't necessarily have to move James out. So I totally get this line of argument that we will be selling perfectly good players for shiny new toys in game week 3, and that could potentially backfire.
Yeah, good stuff. Looking at the Fantasy Football Hub predicted points from game weeks 2 to 5 should give us a few more clues. Haaland surprisingly top, 34 points. Salah second, 25. Rashford 23. Bruno Fernandes 23. So Bruno is up, is up there still. Bruno and Rashford the next 4 weeks are right up there in the top 4 for all players from game weeks 2 to 5. Maddison next, who mentioned 21.5. Saka 21. Jackson is up there, 20.8. Martinelli 20.6. Son 20. Odegaard 20. Watkins, Mbuemo, Richarlison has moved up. Trent, Mitoma, Eze 18. Foden 18. Stones is still in there. His flag hasn't updated on FPL yet, so as soon as that does, he will drop out of that. Edison and Isaac. Interestingly, I noticed that Chilwell isn't in the top 20. There's only 2 defenders in the whole of the top 20. That is Trent and Stones. Stones will drop out. I did look at Chilwell, and he is predicted to get 17.3 points in the next four game weeks. But yeah, interestingly, forwards and midfielders, especially midfielders. How many mids are that? 4, 8, 9, 10, 13 out of the top 20 players are midfielders, and we've said all preseason, have we? Midfield is where it's at. It's at the moment. Rich, any thoughts on that list? Does it make you think differently at all?
It makes me feel that we've fundamentally got most of the right players. I think there's very little difference between Salah and the United boys in terms of expected points. He's slightly ahead, but not to the tune of 12.5 million. So yeah, and then I'll start reading down the list. Maddison's obviously on my mind. Jackson I've mentioned. Those are the 2 picks that if I'm going to make 2 transfers next week, I'd probably go for, and that would just increase my coverage of those top guys. I mean, I think I'd probably be looking at if Bruno doesn't return at the weekend, he's probably vulnerable for me in my squad. You know, he'd be probably, because I'd have to get off somebody, and I'm quite happy with Martinelli and Saka. I'm quite happy with Matoma. So I'd probably think Bruno to Maddison might be a move I'd make. But more likely, I'm interested to see how João Pedro goes, because I may keep him and actually go to sort of more of a 12-man squad and use my 2.5 to upgrade the 4.5 dud to Jackson, and then have 3 good strikers to alternate around. So yeah, Jackson I like. Almost went with him game week 1 and didn't go for that 4.5 option, but I think he's my favourite to bring in on there. Bakar, what do you think?
I mean, I think he was very unlucky not to have gotten at least one return in game week 1. I mean, he had the highest big chance of all players in the league. He had 3 big chances. No one had more. He was level for big chances with Isak. But unfortunately failed to find the net. And those run of fixtures are actually so good that over the course of his career, he actually has a very, very good conversion rate. So it was sort of very unlike him to miss the chances that he did. I'm expecting him to come good in the weeks to come, and the service will be there, in my opinion. Chelsea have strengthened in the market, and I think they will be a completely different side this season.
Just on Newcastle, their next 3, away to City, home to Liverpool, away to Brighton, the way they played, you can probably expect them to do well, to score goals. Not too sure on the clean sheets, but I think they'll definitely score goals. After that, game week 5, home to Brentford, away to Sheffield United, and then they go on a really nice run. Are you tempted at all? If Newcastle play as well as he did last week, this week, are you tempted to jump on any of those players earlier, like Isak or maybe Harvey Barnes if he gets a start, or is it just a wait and see for game week 5? Bakar, what do you think?
At this point in time, James Trippier is a move I could make in the coming weeks. I don't think it's a bad move, because for me, he's still the best pick in the Newcastle team. He created a big chance the weekend as well, created 4 chances. And he looked good. I mean, it was very good for bonus as well. So in my opinion, when their fixtures improve after game week 4, yes, they will have European commitments, but the fixtures are so good that I would expect a quality team like Newcastle to flourish. And I mean, they just sort of completely ripped Villa apart the other day, and Villa are actually a very good side. So for me, I think Newcastle are a quality side, and I would have no hesitation investing in Trippier if I had to go there in, let's say, by game week 4 or 5.
How about you, Rich?
Well, I've got Botman.
Exciting assets. It's exciting.
Yeah, exactly.
Assets.
I sort of brought him in as my, I know he's going to play and he'll get me 2 points off the bench in the first few weeks, but he's there for game week 5. So yeah, in terms of doubling up, I'm not immediately looking there. Obviously, if you time your ownership of Callum Wilson, it can be devastating, but I do think they're going to play with 1 striker at the moment, and so that for me is a bit of a no-go with the rotation that's going to come between Isak and Wilson. But yeah, I mean, they're an exciting side. I think they looked really, really good against Villa, and I don't think the fixture's going to necessarily stop the way they're playing. I can see them winning 1 or 2 of those next 3, despite the fact that they are arguably against the 3 most attacking teams in the league. So I think we'll see some real. I mean, I really want to watch the matches. I think obviously, though, Brighton, Liverpool, and City against Newcastle, I think they'll be great matches to watch for the neutral in terms of entertainment. So yeah, but I don't. There's fantasy picks. I think we can wait a while.
Just a final question on Gusto. I've got to be honest. I don't know an awful lot about him. Do you think, looking at Chelsea and the fixtures, I'm thinking more of maybe sort of a triple up here. Chilwell and Jackson, we guess, are going to be incredibly popular both this week and in game week 3. There may be another player who emerges, maybe a Mudryk or a Sterling or an Enzo or a Sanchez even, just as an example. Do you think that getting Gusto in for the 4 million price tag as a potential Chelsea right back is a risky move? Think it's a good move? Rich, what's your thoughts? Thoughts on that?
I like you. I don't know enough about him. I think he's on my homework list just to do a bit of a read up. And I guess he was brought in is cover more of a cover pick for James, but now he's immediately obviously could come in and play in that position. But they have got other players who can play in that spot. I mean, I'd be maybe thinking about Colwill as a cheaper Chelsea asset that might be worth the extra 0.5 for that run of games. I mean, the third Chelsea spot is now obviously much more debatable as to who you'd go for. Now James looks like he's out of the picture. So I'm not sure it's essential to have a third Chelsea straight away, but you certainly probably want a couple come game week 3. But we might find out some more. I mean, where are you with that? Are you going to go for a third one, Bakar, or should you ditch James? Or
I'll have my eyes on how they set up this weekend, because I mean their tactical setup against Liverpool gave both Chilwell and James plenty of freedom to get forward. Actually, both of them were in the top 5 defenders for touches in the final third. Even James, he created a couple of chances, and both of them were big chances. So his numbers were excellent along with Chilwell. If Gusto is as attacking, or even half as attacking as James, then at 4 million, I will find it very, very hard to pass up given the fixtures. Exactly. So I think this West Ham fixture will be a bit of a litmus test for the Chelsea defense and for Gusto in particular. And if he looks good again this week, then he'll be very tough to ignore.
Good stuff. Let's have a look at our first captaincy poll of the season, and what a captaincy poll it is. So we posted on Fantasy Football Hub earlier in the week, and the top 2 votes got, what was that, 1,283 votes between them. 641 for Haaland, 642 for Salah. That is unbelievable. That is how close it is. There's probably a lot of bias in there for you would guess who owns which. So I probably think that Salah is probably the favourite out of these two, because those, like, I picked Haaland because I haven't got Salah, even though I probably think Salah is the best pick. According to the Hub, Haaland is predicted to get 8.3 points, Salah 7.1. Underneath that, Saka, Watkins, but this is a 2-horse race, definitely. Bakar, what are your thoughts on the captaincy for this week? As in, objectively, who is the best captain? What do you think?
I think Salah has the higher ceiling, simply.
Okay.
I mean, looking at how City are playing and looking, given the fact that they haven't really hit the heights of last season when they were in full flow yet, I would expect Haaland to score, let's say, around 8 or 9 points. But with Salah, the ceiling is there, because you'd expect Liverpool to score. They could even score 4 or 5 goals, and Salah could be heavily involved in all of them for all we know. And the thing with Salah is that I did a piece on him last week as well, that ever since Liverpool have changed formation, it was game week 30 last year, I believe, in those 10 games of the Premier League last season, his numbers, his underlying data has been at optimal levels. I mean, it's been as good as his peak seasons. So he's getting into more central positions. He's creating XG at a very quick rate. He's getting shots in very threatening positions, and he's looking better than ever before. So in my opinion, I think he's the asset to go for. And the good thing about him is that with Liverpool, all the other assets, Jota, Hakpo, Diaz, I mean, they tend to get hooked around the 60, 70-minute mark, while Salah is likely to play the significant majority of the game. So, yeah, I'd expect him to be involved in most of the goals.
There's been a lot of chat around maybe Darwin being benched game week 1, which he was, and potentially starting game week 2. Anecdotally, when I've watched Liverpool, and in pre-season when Darwin has started, Salah has been much more of a creator rather than a goal scorer himself. It's kind of that Darwin up front the 9. Do you think whoever plays up front with him will affect his output, Rich? And is it something you've thought about at all?
No, not really. I think if anything, he's going to be motivated after being substituted last week to come out and be selfish in the game himself. I think he'll be looking to take more goal attempts himself. That's probably the worrying thing as a potential non-owner going into that game. He didn't look happy, did he, when he got taken off? And so I think he'll be looking to, make sure that doesn't happen again on Saturday. I mean, if I was a Salah owner, I'd quite like to see him start with with Darwin. I think Darwin's potentially the highest ceiling player out of all of them. Again, he does miss a lot of chances, but he's very explosive. And yeah, the points will be shared around. I mean, I would say it'd be like maybe 4-1 or something like that. It was my prediction for the goals, and I would say Salah's 2+ returns at least in the game would be my prediction. So you're talking about maybe 10 to 15 points minimum. I just hope. Yeah, I would just say Haaland would get. I just hope Haaland gets close to 10 maybe, and there's not a huge variance between the two captaincies, but because not everybody owns both of them, it is a real opportunity for people to get out in front if they've got Salah this week. So yeah, I'm worried about it, but not to the tune that I'm going to take a hit for it.
10 to 15 points minimum,
yeah,
Rich.
I would say. With bonus, I would say. Yeah. Well, we'll see if I'm right. Yeah,
we will. Fergie is a punt. So this is from game week 2 to 6. So last week, I'm sure it should be 2 to 5 actually. Last week I went for Havertz, so he didn't return in the first game. I thought he was a bit unlucky, but he's still got 3 game weeks to make it up. This week, going for someone we haven't mentioned him much, but he's a Chelsea player. He's a midfielder, and he played a lot more advanced last week than we've seen him. He also took a lot of corners, and he could potentially be on penalties. He's only £5 million. Sure, you guys can guess who it is now. Either of you guess? 5 million midfielder?
I've seen the slide.
I
was thinking it's Chukwuemeka, but he's 4.5, so is this Enzo?
It is Enzo. Enzo at 5 million. I've got his heat map up now, and he looks to play a lot more attacking, and he took a lot of corners as well. And think that we could see a different Enzo. And now that Chelsea have signed Casado as well, potentially, you've got those like City midfielders. He could push a lot more forward. So I think
Enzo. I think he'll be on penalties as well.
I do as well.
Yeah, that's it. I heard that he might be on the pens with James out. He might be on the pens.
Yeah.
I think we might see a bit of like a more forward-thinking Jorginho of previous years in terms of he doesn't do an awful lot, but he'll get the odd assist, gets the penalties, and at 5 million, if you are looking at that price point, which probably none of us are at the moment, but again, the point of this series of Fergie as a punt is to try and get kind of ahead of the curve. So he's just somebody spotted last week, and I think on the next 4 game weeks, I think he'll surprise a few, and I think he'll get a couple of returns. I'll go for 2. I think if in the next 4 weeks he gets 2 returns for a 5 million midfielder, I think we can probably class that as a success. So he's the man I'm going for the next few weeks. Watch this space, Bakar, when Enzo bags over these next few weeks. Remember this chat. Let's have a look at our teams ahead of game week 2. Rich, I got yours on screen at the moment. Do you just want to tell us your plans for the coming weekend?
Yeah, my plans are to save the transfer with 24 hours to go. I obviously want to hear some news on Gabriel, whether Arteta says something about continuing with the same system. That might give me the jitters, but I will go with the same back 3 as last week: Chilwell, Gabriel, and Estupiñán. Hope he plays. I'm going to play Turner in goal over Onana. I mean, I stole those points from Onana. Anybody who owned Onana. I mean, he was so lucky to get a 9-pointer.
What did you think of that decision?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've ever seen such a blatant penalty in my whole life.
Tragic for the Wolves fans, wasn't it? And and I guess anyone who didn't own Onana in FPL would have been so unhappy that he walked away with 9 points there. I mean, it was crazy, ridiculous. I think the referee team's been stood down, hasn't it?
I've got to have a bit of a rant on that, right? Because how can anyone in the world look at that, have the right amount of time to make a decision, and come to a conclusion that is not a penalty? I just, for the life of me, I don't want to go overboard here, but it stinks of corruption. That's how bad the decision was. Is that it was literally impossible not to give a penalty. It was blatant penalty I've ever seen in my life.
Don't get many at Old Trafford, do you?
But
for the opposing team.
But it's crazy. He absolutely absolutely flattened him, nowhere near the ball, absolutely almost knocked him out. I just find it absolutely incredible that just, okay, they've been stood down. Questions have got to be asked about the integrity of those officials. Absolutely, one of the worst decisions, if not the worst, I've ever seen. What do you think, Bakar? Do you think it was a penalty or not? Please say yes.
Of course it was. I mean, I don't want to get into it because
Are you not a United fan? Are you?
No. I was tearing my hair out as someone who sold Onana right before the deadline. I was tearing my hair out, so I don't want to go into rage mode again because that's how I was feeling on Monday night. Yeah. So I'd let you guys discuss this one over here because it's not for me.
No, it was very, very fortunate, with the bonus points. So you made a lot of saves as well. So you got two bonus points from saves and everything. So to come out with a haul like that was a real game week saver. But it's just very, very lucky. Biggest bit of jam I've had for a while. So, but Turner's coming in. I'm not going to say. I just think Tottenham will score against United.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to give Turner the game against Sheffield United. If you're not going to play him against Sheffield United, you're not going to play him at all. So he's in, and then going to try out the same midfield, 5 across, with Bruno, Rashford at Tottenham, Saka and Martinelli. I think they're away at Palace, and Matoma, who I thought looked great last week, away to Wolves, and then the little golden nugget of João Pedro up front, partnering Haaland. So there's nothing wrong with it really, as long as Gabriel plays, it's good. My bench is a bit shaky. I'm not sure about Baldock's injury or supposed calf injury. We haven't had any confirmation that he is injured, but we haven't had any confirmation that he's fit either. So the team news is quite good there. And of course, Botman again away to City is not ideal either. So I've got pretty thin on the bench if Gabriel doesn't play. But still not enough to make a transfer, I don't think. Thoughts?
Cool. Yeah, I think it's fair. Your recommended transfer via the Hub AI was to save your transfer for game week 2, and your alternative option was to unsurprisingly move Mubama up to Jackson. So you must have 2.5 million in the bench in the bank, Chris.
Yeah, I've got 2.5 million in the bank. Yeah, but how would I play him? Who would I drop if I put him in this week? Course. I mean, I could probably bench João Pedro and play Jackson away to Wolves, but is it that big a difference of a game? He's definitely a transfer that I'm looking. That's definitely a transfer I'm looking at next week. And you'll have the same
benching headache next week, though, Rich.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I know because João Pedro's got a really nice fixture next week.
Bench boost next week.
Or? Yeah. Well, there we
bench
are.
Boost next week.
It's tougher. So. But I've never mind playing with a strong first bencher. I've always done that, so that's all right.
Just a few comments in the chat about the penalty. Christian says, I totally agree, Fergie. It was absolutely outrageous. Leo is good says the ref had Onana in his FPL team. Matthew says it's definitely a penalty. However, the assumption that Wolves would have scored, obviously that is fair. PSV says United fans saying he was just showing his presence. Good stuff there. Bakar, let's take a look at your team. How are you lining up for the weekend? I've taken this off the site, but you've got James in your team at the moment, assuming he's going to be Saliba by the sound of it.
Yeah, of course. It'll be Saliba, and I think I'll be good to go. I mean, I'm happy to bench James this week, give myself another week of information, see how Gusto looks. And if he looks good, then I'll bring him in game week 3 if nothing else comes up, because as mentioned earlier, most of the players that I have very good fixtures in game week 3. So it's going to lead to benching decisions in game week 3. And I'm sure a lot of people will get that wrong. This week, I think it's fairly straightforward, especially with the James injury now. I mean, Chilwell, Saliba, Stupinan at the back. Turner will be in goal like with Rich. I personally think that he's the best option to play this week because Sheffield United looked very, very poor. Last week, they created the fewest chances of all teams in the league. Didn't create a single big chance at all and were ranked 19th for XG. And then the midfield and the attack sort of picks itself with Martinelli, Bruno, Rashford, Saka, Mbomo, Haaland, captain, and Jackson.
Yeah, lovely looking team there, Bakar. And team, your recommended transfer is also save transfer for game week 2. That's what the Hub AI says. And the alternative was to sell Martinelli for Maddison. So 2 sensible things there. So if you do want your own recommended transfers, click on the top link below. You'd have to join as a paying Hub hub member. For my own team, I'm looking all right. I got in Shaw last minute, so I had Gabriel, and I had Onana, and I saw the news, the Stones news, and I very, very quickly shifted out, and I got in Shaw, who got 5 points. He got booked, but that's okay. And Pickford, so but my 11 at the moment, Turner, Estepine, and Chilwell. Probably play Shaw, even though I know he's going to concede this week. I've got Udogie on the bench. I'm really happy to hold Udogie, actually. I really think I'm a transfer ahead there in terms of I think he's going to be incredibly popular after this week. Bruno Rashford, Saka, Martinelli, and Havertz is the decision I have to make. And I've got Haaland and Pedro. But I was just looking ahead to game week 3 on Fantasy Football Hub. Just looking ahead at what my team is going to look like for game week 3, and it's absolutely crazy. There's definitely bench boost potential there.
They've all got good games,
almost all of them are home. I've got Turner playing away at Man United, who will get a lot of save points. Oh my goodness! What, these are ridiculous fixtures. It's bench boost time. Game week 3, absolutely. They've all even Pickford's home to Wolves. Yeah, crazy. I think the 3 players who won't be in my team at that point, Havertz will be home to Fulham, and I've got Mubama and Bayer. But if Gusto plays, it looks like he's going. I can do Bayer to Gusto. I can put Havertz down to someone and bring Mubama up to Jackson. That's bench boost material game week 3. Wowee. I'm going to have to be very, very I'm going to have to be very calm not to do it next week.
Restrained, Fergie. Disciplined.
The 2 things I am, Rich, as you know, restrained and disciplined.
Exactly. Yeah.
My
have you not thought about playing Udogie over Shaw?
I got to be honest, I haven't given an awful lot of thought. I probably won't.
Just because he's got the home game, I just think I'd always go for the home.
I do.
Know you've probably done it because you've got 3 United players and you'd have a defender against the 2 attackers. But I think I might play Udogie for you.
Yeah, you'd expect both teams to score in that kind of game.
It's like a 2-2. It's a classic 2-2 game. Isn't it?
I think 2-2. It's got 2-2 written all over it. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, but I think Udogie looks better from an attacking point of view. I like the look of him against Brentford. He was fairly attacking. I think I'd pick him over Shaw this week as well.
I might have to play him now. Thanks for that, guys. My recommendation is to save as well, and the alternative option. Earlier on in the week, it was Havertz to Maddison, which is what put it in my head. I was like, I love that. But since Jackson's numbers have updated and we've bumped his expected minutes up, it's now saying Pedro to Jackson, just because Jackson is predicted to score a lot more points than Pedro in the coming weeks. But I don't think I'll be taking out João Pedro unless he's benched potentially in game week 2 and 3. But yeah, what I love about the AI recommendations is it takes away all your biases, it takes away all the noise from Twitter and social media, everything else, and it just looks at the data. And even if you don't go with it, it kind of helps point you towards the right direction. So I really, I really like that. Good stuff, guys. Just a reminder, you can get your own FPL team rated now for free using the top link in the description below. You can also get your own recommended transfers. Let us know your ratings and your recommendations in the comments. And if you want Hopta Stats, points predictions, expert team reveals, dedicated WhatsApp group, and so much more, you can sign up to one of our paid services because they have 50% off. It will be finishing soon, the 50% off. So if you aren't a member and you want all this amazing stuff, don't forget you get Bakar's and Rich's team reveal pre-deadline every single week. And we're so confident if you don't win your mini league, you will get your money back. Terms and conditions apply. There's never been a better time to join us at Fantasy Football Hub. We also have a Discord server now, which is free. Link below in the description as well. Thousands of people in there. Come and chat in FPL 24/7. So go and have a chat there. And that is it from us for this week. Thank you so much to everyone who joined in the chat. Thank you so much to those who watch it back and those listening on the podcast version. Your support is very, very much appreciated. Bakar, you are back with us next week as well. Adam is still on holiday. Bakar, you're back next week. Have you enjoyed your debut? I think from my view, you've been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Superb. And where can people find you,
Great.
Bakar?
You can find me on Twitter, Big Man Bakar, BigManBakar on Twitter, and on Fantasy Football Hub, like Fergie mentioned. I update my team and transfers weekly on my team reveal article.
Great stuff. Lovely to have you on, Bakar. Absolute gentleman. Rich, fantastic to have you on. Where can people get hold of you?
At Rich Clarke FPL on Twitter as well. Yeah, and thank you very much again for having me on.
And your Ultra product, Rich, has been going down the storm. Is that right? Just want to give us a skimmy on the Ultra product, what it gives.
We've expanded our team to include more of the contributors at the hub in reviewing members' teams. We've got a monthly Zoom call that I'm doing to interact directly with the member base. I had the first one of those last week ahead of the deadline and got some really great queries and interaction with the community there. And our WhatsApp group for the Ultras has just gone, it's gone 24/7. It's gone nuclear. So if you want to get involved in that, then please find out more on the hub. It's all going well, and we'll help you sort out any issues you have.
Lovely stuff. My handle on Twitter is at @FFH_Fergie. Make sure to drop us all a follow. This podcast and video will be in the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel, and the podcast version is available on all major podcast platforms. If you like what you watched, please press the like button if you haven't already. Be much appreciated. And remember to subscribe to the channel at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast and leave a comment. We'll be back next week with Bakar, previewing Game Week 3. In the meantime, have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the football, and may all your arrows be green. Good night, all.